Well, hello everyone. Here to show you right here. Talk about for just be surprised. So, and a lot of times it sure seems that way. That what does it usually mean when we say for just be surprised, especially if you're going to be looking at something or if you were expecting something in particular. But I have right here this this work right here talking about drawing of knowing about what your reaction would be is to where if you actually heard about something or if you've seen something that kind of catches your mind, and it sure seems that way that most of the time that's how interviews usually go on, to where if you're going to be having an interview or a meeting with somebody about something, and a lot of times anything that catches your mind, right? And most of the time it could be with a cousin, or it could also be with somebody that you do wind up meeting in, in the community or anywhere like that. But a lot of times it's like, that, whenever you do talk to somebody, and you likely want to know too that for how you want to think of that, to where you meet somebody, and I can say that, for just being surprised about what you find out about, this, but still that the first thing that they're gonna probably say is that, well, call me, or write to me or something like that, or if anything, something like but still that but let's just say though that what does that usually mean if somebody prefers to go ahead and talk to you over the telephone rather than to write to you, and so it sure seems that way that I think a lot of it has to do with the conversation privately, or that that or compared to, like, well, sometimes it's hard to understand your language or anything for what you're trying to say or anything like that. But like everybody else will probably say too, if you're going to be writing somebody a letter on a greeting card, though, that you want to know too that certain memos or any source of comments or text or anything like that, you want to know too that a lot of times if it's readable, or if anybody say that I prefer to talk to you over the phone about this, and but most of the time it is private conversations, but still, but let's just say though that that, like everybody else might even say too, that we're really though that most of the time if it's going to be kind of like disturbing, you know um if it's going to be anything that's going to be maybe confidential or anything like that, like everybody else will probably say too that they want to make sure that you're sitting down, so that way you won't get too overly worked out, or but still that but I know with me though that anybody that you're going to be talking to, it sure seems that way that even though whenever you do meet somebody, and a lot of times it's like really what comes to your mind whenever you think about it, but still, but I use this drawing right here mainly for I'm like, just to go ahead and draw a portrait of me right there, along with that this other person right here, and like anybody say that, that other person could be really anybody really, but still that but talking about for promotions and also coming soon. But really though it most of the time, if I'm gonna be responding to any messages or any any emails or anything like that, then most of the time that people ask you to where if you can schedule an interview, like a conference meeting, to where you would be able to have your camera and a recorder connected. So let's just say that that part of the interview that requires you to have working audio, a device where you have access to the working audio, and also anything about what you call allowing it to where you can share documents, examples of the work that you do. And so let's just say that if you're going to be talking to anybody, and most of the time it sure seems that way, that that's usually the case, is that besides any source of identification, it's going to be paperwork, based on okay, the stuff that you do and all that. So a lot of times it's like that whenever you do start a conversation with somebody, and you're probably thinking too that exactly, Mike, but still, whenever I'm working on my artwork here, right here, by the way, that it's like, yeah, what exactly comes to my mind whenever I'm working on this artwork right here, and for what maybe other people were thinking necessarily. I'm like, well, really, the first thing that comes to my mind, first of all, is that, yeah, this is just what you call kind of like a rough draft, but not really. But I was not finished with what I was working on right here, with painting the rest of the details right here, along with polishing the art, the piece up a little bit more. But still, but I know with me though that whenever I think about this right here, that I also think too that whenever you're going to have a conversation with somebody, that you want to start the conversation by stating, I'm like, yeah, to follow up about what we talked about last time. Any questions for me? And most of the time, it's all about any questions or concerns for me or anything like that. But still, people seem to want to have a longer conversation if you are willing to talk with them over a conversation, over the phone, like a conversation, and you'll compare it to reading a 4-page document, and like everybody else might even prefer it that way, to where that, if you can, you'll go ahead and call me, and but still. But on the other hand, too, that we're talking about that yeah, you do meet somebody in person, and then you have your conversations and all that. But a lot of times it's like you start a conversation with somebody, but most of the time that how often are you going to give the person a greeting card first before you give them any personal any telephone number or any contact, text me at this number or anything like that. So a lot of times though that whenever you do meet somebody in person, that the conversation starts by that, yeah, well, that person don't really know you very well, but still. But the way I think about too, though, that you talk about for classmates, though, that whenever I was drawing this, I was actually thinking about an example for somebody, one of your classmates, and at the time, it's like people might even say too that anything that you were working on, really, anything that you want to use for any source of identification or anything like that, and but really though that it's really recommended that to you try to use a photograph for a source of identification rather than a piece of rather than a cartoon. I'm like, yeah, maybe but still that I guess you could say too that just to show any source of identity, really. But everybody say, well, really, it really needs to be recognized. But the way I think about it too, though, that whenever I think about this right here, that I mainly mention about to everybody here, that whenever it comes to meeting somebody, it's like you just be surprised about the situation, to where that whenever you do meet somebody, that you want to think of something, you want to think of ideas, you want to kind of generate ideas, to where that number one, yeah, that person, they're gonna laugh at me just because that they don't quite understand, or yeah, they're not gonna understand it very well. They're just gonna laugh at you and think of you of crazy, whichever. But still, that for just be surprised, knowing that whenever I think about this right here, that like anybody probably say too, that yeah, a lot of things that come into my mind whenever I'm working on this artwork right here. The first thing that does come to my mind is toward it, who needs to be recognized whenever I'm like, yeah, whenever you're doing your artwork right here, that what you are mainly doing is you're just trying to get some ideas together for what does that represent, or if you're just coming up with a few sketches and adding just a little bit of paint detail right there. But still, anybody who approaches your idea might even say too that, yeah, well, you want to think about that, you go ahead and draw a picture and think of anything else that you want to add to that. But I just really think too that yeah, for just be surprised. Well, what does it mean to be surprised about something? Well, you'll be being surprised about something. Being surprised about something. Yeah, being surprised about something means that you were not expecting expecting all or more. Yeah, you were not expecting all or more. So what does that usually mean whenever people say that, to word that, surprise means that you were expecting all or more? What does that usually mean, all or more? And I like everybody to say that, it's another way of how you want to call us, is to word that, you were expecting something a little bit more detailed than that, or that something based on, for, you've been planning ahead of time for a good opportunity and find out that not everything that you requested is there. It could be a number of things. But still, that the way I think about it too, though, that whenever you do, while you're working on something, it seems like to me that a lot of data, like whenever you collect a lot of data, especially, and whenever you do start thinking about things, and then, and then something else comes to your mind. But the way I think about it too, though, that well, what does it usually mean to be surprised about something? That like anybody say that, what does more pretty much mean? Well, more pretty much means is to word it that for all, you a little bit more, or if anything that there is no limit, no limit to what you're allowed to receive it on. But still, that I know with me though that being surprised about something though, that it sure seems that way, that whenever it comes to understanding that whenever you do start working on something, and in a above expectation, and also that anything else, but still, I mainly want to talk about right here, talking about conversations mainly. So, in case if anybody were to ask me about conversations, right?